Hello and welcome to the Estonian Model United Nations 2022 interview series. In this series, we will be discussing different topics that are of dire importance to our world and the people around us. And joining us today is Ali Afzali, who is the Executive Director of TSCO and a member of the Afghan community. Thank you so much for being here.
Welcome. Thank you very much for your invitation. I'm here. And as well as I would like to add about my introduction, I am Afghan human rights and civil activist on the behalf of Afghanistan people.
If you could just tell us a little bit about your expertise within the human rights and civil rights field in Afghanistan.
Since 2003, after September 11 attack on USA, when the international community came in Afghanistan, I was involved in human rights program. We were working for the betterment the situation of the human rights, women rights, minority group, children, person with disability, based on universal of the human rights declaration. It was our focus. And we as a Afghan human rights activists were trying to be involved in such a program which the human right is considered as the basic and central of the every issue which is going to be discussed or implemented in Afghanistan. Yes, I was involved in the many program of the human rights activities in Afghanistan, mostly in the recent years since 2015 and 16. I was also involved in another program by the name of transitional justice, and we were trying to advocate for the people that those who are victims of war, and we were trying to raise their voice on the public by the help of media. Actually, we were trying a lot, but due to have some lower world inside of the parliament, we couldn't succeed to sentence those warlords who had hand in the civil war in Afghanistan to sentence them. But however, it was an experience. At least we could raise the voice of the victim of the war in Afghanistan. And somehow we can say that it was a golden time. It was a good opportunity for Afghanistan with the presence of the international community that they were supporting us. Before it was not experienced. Therefore, it was a unique program. But due to some reason that it was not succeed, but it has a long discussion, that's not the time to discuss about it. But however, I can say that it was an opportunity for us to start the dialogue about the human right, about the peace, about the civil right, about the women rights. Most of the people of Afghanistan, they know the rights of the people. Then we should not consider them that men, woman, minority, which kind of group, disability, not disability, no. At least most of the people now in Afghanistan, they know the human are equal. But due to have some reason that unfortunately much more authority of world war, they are on the power, they do not let us to implement the universal of declaration of human rights. It's another part, another issue. But by the way, it was an opportunity for us to raise the voice of the humanity in Afghanistan.
If you could just give us a little bit of insight how the events that unfolded during the past year have impacted your cause and you personally.
There were several reasons that unfortunately it was happened, a tragedy happened. The democratic government of Afghanistan was collapsed by the hand of Taliban, which we call them that the Taliban are still have relationship with the terrorism, with ISIS-K and something like that. Therefore, there are many reasons. It was from external reason and internal reason. I want to focus on the internal reason that it was happened. There was administration problem which was happening in Afghanistan, such as racism, discrimination against of the another nations, against of the minority people. For example, most of the high authority of Afghanistan government was from the one nation, we call them Pashtun, and the rest of the nation and ethnic was not allowed to be involved in the political program, in the government program, and the social program. And the main reason which this tragedy happened was the discrimination and from the one nation to the rest of the nation who are living in Afghanistan. They do not believe in equality, and unfortunately the democratic government of Afghanistan was collapsed on 15 on August 2021. Now Afghanistan people have very bad situation under the control of Taliban.
Thank you. And now if you could just provide us with some comments on the recent issues that are also connected with the cause of Afghani people. And now that Taliban is in power, what is the effect of the rule on the position of women, and what would be the direct economic consequence of that?
Let me describe who is Taliban. Taliban are the religious radicalism. They are considering on the racism. They are discriminating against women, and they have still relationship with the terrorism. And ideology, they think that they are better than the other people. As I told you, they are radicalism. Religion radicalism believe that the man are the first level and the woman are the second level. Therefore, they do not allow the woman to access to their rights, to access on education rights, works rights, and movement rights, travel rights. The life of the education women in Afghanistan are threatened nowadays. Living under the shadow and the control of such a radicalism group, it is a very difficult situation for Afghanistan women, for human rights activists, for civic rights activists, that the Taliban are against of such kind of values. Afghanistan are against of international norms. They have their own norms of running the government. Only they believe most of the Taliban are illiterate. Most of the Taliban are backwarded person. They are not education person. They are uneducated person. Therefore, only they know how to hold the guns, how to use the weapons, and how to misuse, and how to attack to the people, how to kill people. It is only they know this work, the task. They do not believe in human rights. They do not consider that the woman or as the man are equal. They believe that the woman are not allowed based on their ideology, based on their radicalism and Islamism ideology. They believe that the woman should stay at home. They should not study. They should not go for work. They should not travel by themselves without any mahram. We call mahram, it means a member of the family should be with them. Then otherwise, they are not allowed to work outside. Therefore, living with this kind of the situation under the control of that kind of radicalism group is much more difficult. So, if we understood the Taliban are this kind of have this kind of characteristic, so what will be the consequences? The consequence of such kind of group and government will be that the economic situation will be going down and will be in crisis, and the situation of women and girls are also will be in the bad situation. As you know, that the girls even now, they do not have right to go to school, to to learn education because of their beliefs. So, as I told you, the role of the Taliban are that they do not let the woman to have their education, have access on their rights in the first. The second, now it is obvious for everyone that what happened in Afghanistan, because of that kind of mechanism which Taliban group wanted to run the government, it is against of the international law. So, the international community, they do not recognize Taliban as a government. Then the Taliban do not have access, connection with international community, with any other country as a political, diplomatic, business and transitional, whatever that is. As I explained to you that nowadays the world is connected with the technology, it is like a one world. So, when the Taliban is running the government like this, they become isolated. And this isolation government, of course, the economic situation will be worse and getting worse and worse, because they do not have access to the bank of the external country, and they cannot, they do not have import and export, and due to having a less resource, they do not have some cultivation agriculture resources in order to feed the people who are living there. Due to banding of some company, organization that they are a service provider, they are work provider, they are tools and goods provider, they are also banded, they are closed. In this situation, consequence of that kind of situation is the coming of the worst economic situation in Afghanistan that they are facing. There is not a job for the person who are working. At the meantime, the bank who are working inside of the country, these banks are also frozen for the many of the business or many of the company, many of organization. Our financial organization by the MTÜ, we have money inside of this account and bank, but the bank is freezed because of the collapse of economic situation. Most of the people, children, women, and they are facing with hunger, with no food, do not have access to a health system, and it is a very urgent need of clothing and providing food for them, and also health system should be activated. But if the international community and UN agency do not focus on this issue, I think a human crisis will happen in Afghanistan, and we will face in the future many people will be died by the having not food, having not access in education, in health system, and also without any clothes, because the winter is over there, and it is a very bad situation which we have in Afghanistan nowadays.
Now, keeping in mind the perspective that you have provided, if we can argue that there is no machinery for the implementation of internationally recognized political and economic rights for women, is there any way to improve the situation in Afghanistan in that regard?
There is two ways to be focused on this point. One is politically, and other is human right based. Politically and diplomacy, I can say that the international community plus UN agency, they should persuade Taliban, they should put pressurize on Taliban, and that they should consider the women's rights, and they should pave the way that human rights activists and civil rights activists, they can have protests, they can demonstrate. But nowadays the Taliban, they do not allow the people to demonstrate, to protest, and to raise their voice. It is one way politically and diplomatically that the UN agency and international community should focus on the pressurizing on Taliban, that they should consider and apply based on the Declaration of Universal of Human Rights. As we see that a month ago, one of the intellectual person, mentor from the university, he was captured by the Taliban. He was put in Taliban for some time, but by pressurizing, persuading international community, UN agency, then he released finally. Therefore, I can say that when international community and UN agency, they are trying to pressurize Taliban, and finally the Taliban is compelled and they are mandatory to accept the not all, at least some point of the some suggestion from the international community to continue their control on the some issue, some region of Afghanistan. It was from the political side, but from the social and human rights sides, it's also very important. If the international community and UN agency do not focus on Afghanistan situation, then the human crisis will happen soonly. Then the consequence of that kind of the human crisis will be international community. Therefore, they should put focus on this situation as well. I think providing food, clothes, and some item for the health is very necessary. If this necessity for the people will not be provided in Afghanistan, many people will die in the near future. International community or any country who want to cooperate with Afghanistan financially, providing food and clothes, they should not donate it to the hand of Taliban, because Taliban are very corrupted person, and they will use this material for their soldier. They will use this equipment for those who are not needed, and therefore, as much as we know on the press, on the media, that before month ago, many donation was did in Afghanistan by some international community, UN agency, but it was not reached by the needy people. I don't know, it was just distributed in some area for the Taliban, for the soldier. Then, as I told you, that the Taliban regime, or they are discriminating against another nation. There are Tajik nation, there are Hazara nation, and there are Uzbek nation, and there is another minority nation. The Taliban are against of the rest of the nation. They only think themselves. They only think that how can they stay on the power with themselves, not with other. They are not willing to establish or form a comprehensive government. And they are a fascism, they are fantasism, they are the racism people that who are running now the government. So, providing food, clothes, and health item is very necessary nowadays in Afghanistan. The UN agency or international community, they should donate this item for the UN or NGO who are active in Afghanistan, or some of the NGO who are not in Afghanistan but they are in abroad, they are in Europe, or they are in some another country. If the UN agency and international community pressurize the Taliban will accept this, because if the people die in Afghanistan, then the consequences they're dying will be the Taliban, the first step. Then the second, then international community. There are IOM, UNHCR, UNAMA, and UNICEF, UNESCO, much more organization are over there, and they should pave the way a new path that by the help of this organization, that only the Taliban should control and observe how is the distribution this item for the people. But the Taliban should not have access to this item, otherwise this item will not reach for the needy people. It will be misused for the Taliban.
What would be your message to young people around the world who are following the news and care for the plight of the Afghani people?
If a person dies due to hunger, due to starvation, or due to not have access to the life needed, everyone in the world have the responsibility to answer to this question. Universal of the Human Rights Declaration emphasizes when the human born, he or she is the human, and it should not be considered the nation, the religions, the belief, the ideology. Therefore, those people who are facing in such kind of problem in Afghanistan, they are a human. If one of them die, it is the responsibility for every international community, every individual people who are living in the world. It is about 5 and 6 months I am living in Europe country. I can say the young people, I can say majority of people in the Europe, they are living as a paradise. Just think, consider that a woman is here with the baby, the mother, that the child asking for the mother, please give me food. If the mother do not have a food, then who can answer this question of the child? You are a human. You should think humanity. It's really important that individually, as a government, as an international community, we should think, consider that the people in Afghanistan, they are facing with tragedy. Despite of this, that they do not have freedom of speech, they do not have the rights of going to school, going to education, going to work, but the most life needed is 3 things. 1, food, clothes, and accommodation. Most of the people in Afghanistan, they do not have access to these 3 essential needs for the living. My message is for the people in Europe, think as a human, and if there is any possibility, please donate for the Afghan people who need to stay alive.
Thank you so much, Mr. Afzali, for sharing this powerful message with us and for providing us with your invaluable perspective and expertise on all of these topics.
Thank you very much for you.